You were sitting in a nondescript sedan in a suburban parking lot, nursing a lukewarm coffee and watching a low-level informant's apartment, when your encrypted radio pulses with a tone you haven't heard in 3 years. It is a Tier 1 override. You don't answer. You drive straight to the safe house designated in the digital burst. When you arrive, the director of organized crime is standing over a table covered in high-resolution photographs of a man who looks exactly like you, except for the $5,000 suit and the predatory stillness in his eyes. This man was Julian Vane, the underworld's premier high-stakes proxy gambler, a man who laundered cartel blood money through the world's most exclusive casinos. He was killed in a silent drone strike in Macau 4 hours ago. No one knows he is dead yet. The director hands you a thick dossier and a set of custom-molded earpieces. You have exactly 6 hours to memorize Vane's betting patterns, his lineage, and the specific facial tics of the 3 men who will try to kill you if they realize you aren't the man who owes them $80 million. You walk out of that room, leave your badge on the table, and board a private jet. By the time the wheels touch down in a sovereign island territory known for its lack of extradition treaties, your old life is a ghost. You are now the man who can lose a fortune without blinking, and your only mission is to find the ledger that connects the world's largest narcotics syndicate to 3 sitting prime ministers. You walk into the private salon of the Grand Azure with $40 million in digital credits and a stomach that feels like it's filled with jagged glass. The transition from a beat-up sedan to a gold-leafed baccarat table is instantaneous and jarring, but you cannot afford a single moment of hesitation. You sit down across from a man known as the Architect, a financier who builds cities with money stolen from pension funds. He watches you with a cold, analytical hunger. You realize immediately that this isn't about the cards, it's about the performance. You have to play with the reckless arrogance of a man who believes he is untouchable. You bet $5 million on the first hand and lose it in 12 seconds. The internal scream of your training, the part of you that remembers the value of a dollar and the necessity of procedure, is silenced by the mask you wear. You lean back, sip a vintage cognac you can't stand, and laugh. You have to make them believe that $5 million is pocket change, even as you calculate that this single loss could fund your entire precinct for a decade. The Architect smiles, and you know you've passed the first test. You aren't just a gambler, you are a vacuum designed to suck information out of the room. As the weeks progress, your life becomes a blurred sequence of high-pressure decisions where the currency is both money and blood. You move from the Grand Azure to a subterranean poker game in a bunker beneath a skyscraper in Dubai. The stakes have shifted. You are no longer just losing money to gain favor, you are winning it to assert dominance. In this world, the hierarchy is determined by who can withstand the most pressure. You find yourself sitting at a table with a paramilitary commander and a tech mogul who sells surveillance software to dictators. You have 3 million in chips in front of you, but your real assets are the tiny transmitters you've planted in the high-denomination plaques. Every time a chip moves, a team of analysts in a windowless room in Virginia maps the flow of wealth. You make a strategic error, a calculated risk designed to see who at the table is willing to cheat. The commander slides a card from his sleeve. You see it, but you don't call him out. Instead, you use the leverage. You wait until the game ends, then corner him in the lounge, offering to overlook his indiscretion in exchange for an introduction to his logistics coordinator. This is the moment your role shifts from mimicry to manipulation. You are trading the government's money for the syndicate's trust, and every deal you strike leaves a stain on your conscience that no amount of professional justification can wash away. By your second month undercover, the psychological toll begins to manifest as a constant low-level paranoia. You are living in a penthouse suite that costs more per night than your father earned in a year. You are surrounded by luxury, yet you are more malnourished than you were in the academy because you can't taste anything but the metallic tang of adrenaline. You have to manage a revolving door of threats. One night, a suspicious enforcer for the cartel corners you in the gym, questioning your sudden reappearance after the Macau incident. You have to decide in a split second whether to be defensive or aggressive. You choose aggression. You insult his standing in the organization and threaten to pull your business, betting that his fear of his superiors is greater than his suspicion of you. It works, but the victory is hollow. You realize you are becoming too good at being Julian Vane. You find yourself thinking in his voice, adopting his cruel dismissiveness towards service staff, and feeling a genuine rush when the cards turn in your favor. The line between the hunter and the prey is eroding. You were supposed to be the law, but you are currently the largest money launderer in the Eastern Hemisphere. The mission escalates when you are invited to the Sanctuary, a floating casino on a refurbished Soviet aircraft carrier in international waters. This is the inner sanctum. There is no radio contact here. The signal jammers are absolute. You are truly alone. You were brought here because you have won enough to be considered a peer by the men who run the global black market. The buy-in is your soul. To stay at the table, you are required to participate in a dark pool betting round, where the wagers aren't on cards, but on the fluctuation of black market commodity prices, specifically the timing of a coordinated cyber attack on a national power grid. You realize that the game is a cover for a massive act of economic terrorism. If you play, you are complicit in a crime that will kill thousands. If you refuse, your cover is blown, and you will be executed and dumped into the ocean before the next hand is dealt. You sit at the table, your hands steady, your heart a frantic hammer against your ribs. You bet. You use the department's untraceable funds to back the attack, justifying it by the desperate need to identify the masterminds. You win the hand, and with it, the keys to the ledger you've been hunting. The ledger isn't a book, it's a person. It's the teenage daughter of the syndicate's founder, a mathematical prodigy who keeps the entire network's encrypted keys in her head. She is the dealer for the final game. You see the fear in her eyes and recognize a fellow prisoner. Your objective is to extract her, but the logistical nightmare is staggering. You're on a ship surrounded by 200 armed mercenaries. Every move you make is monitored by biometric sensors. You have to play a perfect game of poker while simultaneously signaling to her, using a code hidden in your betting amounts, that you are there to save her. It takes 3 days of continuous play. You lose sleep, you lose millions, and you nearly lose your mind. You orchestrate a massive loss that requires you to be taken to a private room for a debt settlement. This is the pivot. You have calculated that the founder will come to personally oversee the transfer of your remaining assets. When the door closes, the violence is sudden and absolute. You use a concealed ceramic blade to neutralize the guards and take the founder hostage. There is no backup coming. There is no extraction team. You spend the next 6 hours navigating the bowels of the ship, using the founder as a shield and the girl as your guide. You are no longer the polished gambler. You are the desperate cop you were in that suburban parking lot, but with the blood of the elite on your hands. You manage to reach a lifeboat, but not before a bullet grazes your ribs. As you drift away from the massive iron hull of the carrier, watching it disappear into the fog, you realize the ledger is safe, but you are not. The names the girl begins to recite, the prime ministers, the generals, the CEOs, are the same people who signed the paychecks for your superiors. The victory you've achieved is a death sentence. You have the dirt on everyone, which means you have a target on your back that will never disappear. You reach a neutral shore 3 days later, But you don't go to the embassy. You don't call the director. You look at the girl, look at the encrypted drive you've managed to clone from the ship's internal server, and realize that the high-stakes game hasn't ended. It has just moved to a larger table. You are still the gambler, still the undercover operative, but now you're playing for the highest stake of all, the survival of the truth in a world owned by the people you were sent to arrest. You walk into the shadows of a coastal city, your ribs burning, your identity erased, waiting for the first man in a suit to knock on your door and ask for his money back. The tension is no longer a temporary state, it is your new atmosphere. You are the only person who knows how the world is actually run, and that knowledge is a debt you will be paying for the rest of your life.